Hello, welcome. I am Mr. Gavin with Museo Art Academy, and this is part 2 of 3 for our Intro to Digital Illustration lesson series for computers. So keep in mind, this is for the computer format. So if you have a tablet or an iPad, we have a separate series for that. So just stop this video, go to that one. However, if you are using your computer, continue forward. Additionally, if you have not seen part 1, of our 3-part series, stop this video again, because this is part 2, where we are specifically going to dive right in, assuming that you have remembered what we have learned prior, and we're just going to continue on forward. However, if you have no idea what Sketchbook looks like, stop this video right now and go to part 1, where we go over the general overview of Sketchbook. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. All right. So as lesson 2 for our Intro to Digital Illustration series, we will specifically work with layers today. All right. You are going to learn more in depth as to how layers work with each other and as digital art in general. All right. Make sure you have your computer and your stylus ready to go. And we'll talk about what layers are. We'll explore them. And we are going to create a colored landscape using Sketchbook layers. This is what our landscape will look like. Very nice. All righty, we're gonna make a nice little sunset landscape with complementary colors using blue and orange, do some little cactuses, and it's just gonna be an awesome time. Hopefully you have your Sketchbook project open. What I did and what I've taught before is I zoomed out on the project a little bit just so I can see the borders, right? So the very edges. Okay, now, since we are making a landscape, landscapes have 3 grounds. It has a foreground, middle ground, and a background. Foreground being in the front, middle in the middle, background in the back. Now, whenever we make a new layer, it always appears above our previous layer, therefore in front of our previous layer. So in a way, we have to make this project by moving a little bit backwards. All right. So let's go ahead and start kind of in the middle. We're going to start in the middle ground with the landscape ground scene in the back, and we'll slowly move forward. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we are going to select our inking pen brush. We're going to bring down the size a little bit, have the opacity at 100, and let's go ahead and select a nice light blue. Okay. Now, with landscapes, we have what we call atmospheric perspective, where the further things are, the lighter they get, and they start blending with the atmosphere itself. So since we're starting further back, we need to start our color a little bit lighter. Okay, and then we'll gradually make it darker and darker and darker as we go. So let's start right here with light blue. Okay, move this over. Now we can just close it. Okay, now on our first layer, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make this nice little hilly shape right in the middle, okay? So that was just an example. I'm gonna undo this. Okay. Now, we're gonna start outside of our project. Okay. And the reason we're starting outside is because we need to fill in the bottom half. And to make sure that successfully does happen, we do need to start outside. If we try to start at the edge, like so, what tends to happen is that the line is not completely closed on the project. So it's best to just start outside right here, like that. And then just end outside, like that. Doesn't have to be a perfect line or anything that needs to be super specific. Just be a nice little bumpy wave like that. Okay. Then go to your fill bucket tool and just poke the bottom to fill it in. Easy. Okay. Now deselect your fill tool because it will continue to fill whenever you poke inside of that layer. All right, nice and simple. Picked a brush, drew a line, filled it in. Then next step, make a new layer, do it all again. So let's go ahead and make a new layer. Select a slightly darker blue. So we're just going to shift it down a little bit inside of the diamond, like that. Okay, and then right underneath this line, we're going to draw another line going across. Maybe the bumps are a little bit different. Yeah. Okay. Then with your fill bucket tool, fill it in. See, there you go. Now, we're not going to do this infinitely. Let's do about like 2 more layers because we are getting closer to the bottom. If you did make yours a little bit higher up, then you're more than welcome to make a couple more layers. But for this, I'll just make 4. So let's make a new layer. It is art, however, so there's a lot of wiggle room. So let's make a slightly darker blue. Deselect your fill tool because it will fill in everything. Draw another little hillscape. Fill bucket, fill it in, make a new layer. And this time we're going to make the foreground, the ground closest to us. Now we're going to make this an even darker blue. Like that. And because it is so close to us, this should generally feel a little bit more flatter because of how close it is. Okay. Remember, if you made any mistakes along the way, just hit undo to kind of get rid of the most recent action. Okay. Fill bucket tool. There you go. And don't worry, you can pause at any time in the video just so that way you can kind of like see what's happening. If you need to like a double check. Okay, there we go. Okay, we have our nice little landscape. Now, we're going to add some cactuses in there to kind of fill in the foreground. So since we have this most recent layer, the dark blue, we're going to continue working here. So with the same brush, we're just going to bring up the size of the brush now. Okay. So let's see if that's pretty big. Maybe a little too big. Let's bring it down. There we go. All right. So I'm going to add a cactus on the left side and on the right side. Okay, so I'm going to start inside of my foreground right here. And I'm just going to draw a squiggly up like that. Nice and easy. Okay, and I have these little plant appendages coming out. Okay, there we go. On the right side, maybe I'll make a slightly taller one. Like that. There you go. Nice and easy. And then I'm going to make little bushes on the bottom. I'm just going to squiggle in some shapes like that. And these are just little blotches. They're not anything in particular. So if you want to make your bush shapes however you want, go ahead. Got a couple here and there to make the scene feel a little bit more lived in. Okay, like that. Nice and easy. Alrighty. Now, once you're done, it is time to make the background. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a new layer. But since every new layer we're making appears in front, now that we're jumping into the background now, we do have to move this layer underneath everything. So if you recall, right here on reorder layers, these 2 arrows, you're going to hold it down, and then you're going to shove this layer all the way to the bottom right above background layer. This background layer basically hides and shows the transparency. This layer never moves, nor should you ever have to deal or bother with it. So just leave it there at the bottom. Okay. So we have this right here. So let's go ahead and select our fill tool and let's select orange. Kind of fill in the background. Okay. Select our orange and fill it in. There you go. Nice and filled in. Feels like warm scene now, complementing our landscape. Very nice. Okay, now deselect our fill tool. Okay, now our sky kind of looks a little bit flat. So we're going to add a little gradient into it by adding our brush tool, by implementing it. So it's not a new brush. It is our airbrush tool. Okay, so we make our size nice and large. And the color we're going to select is a darker orange with a slightly more red in there, like that. Okay. You're going to take this airbrush and you're going to scooch it along the top right here to add in a nice soft gradient. Okay, so watch carefully. So you're going to take your brush. And I like to start outside of my project because the edges of the brush are the most softest and I want to have that in there. Let's start a little bit outside on the top just slowly start dragging my brush across. Yeah. And as you can see, it's a nice soft gradient that's appearing. And that's what I want. Like that. Okay. And you can make your gradients as many colors as you want for learning purposes and to kind of move forward. I'm just going to do 2 colors. However, if you do want to do more beyond what I'm doing here, pause the video, add whatever you want, and then resume whenever you're ready to move forward. Okay. So now that we have our sky done, let's go ahead and reselect our inking pen, bring down the size, and select the color white. Okay. We're kind of prepping this for the next step. We're going to add our sun object right in the middle, our circular shape. So let's hit the plus icon, make a new layer. Now we need to go to our draw style tool because for our sun, we need it as a perfect circle, right? Or the best circle we can make. So we're going to use our draw style tools for that. Go to oval, start wherever you like, drag it out, make a nice circular shape. And you let go. And you have a circle. Then, if you can guess it, fill tool to fill in the center, like so. Make sure this sun is on a separate layer from the background, okay? Because if to manipulate it, move it around, and change what you need to, you have to make sure that this is on its own separate layer. Otherwise, you'll move the sky as well. So in order to see that, go to Quick Transform. Hover over the outer ring. And as you can see, only my sun's moving around and nothing else. Almost looking like sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset. Okay. And then additionally, you can make it bigger. You can make it smaller. Probably not that big. You can make it bigger and smaller, like so. Okay. Pretty neat. And we're almost done. We're going to put on the finishing touches. We are going to make this glow, which is pretty cool. And we don't actually need to do anything besides making new layers to make it glow. So with our sun layer right here, what you're going to do is you're going to duplicate this layer and bring down the opacity of the new layer. You can bring it down midway or a little bit less, 30% or something. If you see on the bottom of your screen, it does say what the opacity is at. And there's a little number right here that also changes to show you. So 30-ish is like good. Go to your Quick Transform tool. Go to the center for scaling and make it a little bit larger. And as you can see, it's making a light ring around. It's still technically the same sun. We're just making it slightly larger, but the layer is at a lower opacity, therefore more transparent. So it looks like a little ring. Okay, just like so. Okay. You can double check, hide and unhide it so you can see if that's the correct layer, because we're going to duplicate this a couple more times. Now, when you duplicate a layer that is at a lower opacity, it keeps the opacity lower. It doesn't go back to 100. It keeps the low opacity that it was duplicating from. The only thing we need to do is go to your Quick Transform tool, go to Scale, and make it slightly bigger. Okay, and I bet you can see what I'm doing now. I said to make a couple more. So make a new one, duplicate, Quick Transform. Oops, wrong one. Quick Transform, make it slightly bigger, just like so. Do it one more time. Quick Transform, slightly bigger. And there you go. You have made your sun appear as if it's glowing, but instead you've actually used 4 new duplicate layers from that one sun to do so. Now, how is it exactly doing this little gradient? Well, these transparencies are stacking on top of each other, therefore becoming more opaque. With your sun in the center having all 5, right here having 4, this having 3, this having 2, and this having 1. Does that make sense? So it's like you're taking transparent sheets of paper and then you're slowly stacking them on top of each other. Okay, so with that in mind, congratulations. You have successfully finished yet another project in our Intro to Digital Illustration series. I hope you enjoyed creating this awesome landscape, okay, utilizing our different layers, learning how to make projects simply from constantly creating new layers and playing around with the functions the layers have to offer. Alrighty, so you have successfully created a wonderful landscape scene, and I hope you continue to make more landscapes. This is a very popular project because people, or my students, really like making forest landscapes, ocean landscapes, mountain landscapes. There's many different kind of landscapes you can make simply because of um, how much opportunity the layers can give you. Okay, so there are many different options, and I definitely encourage you to play around. So our third and final lesson for our series is playing with brushes. All right. Now, our brush library in Sketchbook is humongous. So there are many different options and opportunities to play around with. For our final lesson, we are going to specifically play with brushes so we can recreate fur texture. All right, so we will primarily focus on that. So thank you for joining me for this lesson, part 2 of 3 for our intro to digital illustration. And I will see you next time. I'm Mr. Gavin. Have a good one.